Bill Clinton has failed us. Now, America needs a new direction, a leader to restore our lost sense of confidence in the future, a president to continue the Republican Revolution and help us take back our country.
The promise of American life is this irrational belief in our unlimited future and that every single one of us has a chance to participate in that. The next President of the United States, the person we will be electing this next year, will sit in the White House on the first day of the year 2000 with the responsibility for leading us into the next century. The main purpose of that president must be to rebuild our confidence in the promise of American life.
Meet Lamar Alexander. He grew up in Maryville, a small town in the mountains of East Tennessee. His mother was a teacher. His father worked in the aluminum plant. It was in this community of strong families that Lamar Alexander learned his most important lessons.
I stood on the steps of that home where I grew up in Maryville, Tennessee. One newspaper referred to it when I was appointed education secretary. They said, Mr. Alexander grew up in a lower middle-class family in the mountains of eastern Tennessee, which was all right with me, but not, I discovered, when I called home the next week, all right with my mother, who was literally reading Thessalonians to gather strength for how to deal with this slur on the family. And she said what your mother might have said. We never thought of ourselves that way. You had a library card from the day you were 3. You had a music lesson from the day you were 4. You had everything you needed that was important. Everything I needed that was important, including a grandfather down the street who had run away and become a railroad engineer and gotten back in time to instruct us all, aim for the top, there's more room there. Including neighbors as I walked through school who were so nosy, I thought, that I never could have gotten in trouble, even if there'd been trouble to get into, because they were so deeply involved in my life. The school, I walked by it 6 weeks ago. There the teachers taught me more than algebra and English, where our Pledge of Allegiance came from, what was important about our civilization, some more about right and wrong, how to show up on time. The church was across the street. It was always open. It seemed like we were always there. And then down the street was the courthouse, where I announced for president and where my father had taken me when I was 10 years old to meet our congressman because he thought that was important. I was taught to look up to him, to what he did, and to this country. And it was from there that I gathered my confidence in our future. All of us did, growing up in that little town.
Lamar Alexander was educated at Vanderbilt University. He went to Washington and worked for President Nixon. He met Honey Bueller from Victoria, Texas. They married and started a family. In 1978, Lamar and Honey Alexander came home to his parents' house in Maryville, stood on the front steps, and announced he was going to put on his red and black shirt and walk 1,000 miles across Tennessee in a grassroots campaign for governor. The experts laughed, but mile by mile, more and more people joined Alexander's band, a campaign about helping Tennessee change politics as usual and build a new future. Lamar Alexander was elected governor of Tennessee, and at the request of the U.S. Attorney, he was sworn in 3 days early to replace a corrupt machine governor caught selling pardons for cash in the governor's office.
Only 3 days left in Governor Blanton's term. Why was it so imperative that you take office now?
The United States Attorney from the Middle District of Tennessee called me at noon and said he had substantial reason to believe that Governor Blanton was about to let out of a state prison one or more persons who were the targets of a grand jury investigation into alleged payoffs in connection with pardons and paroles. With that information, I concluded immediately, as I suppose the Speaker and the Lieutenant Governor must have too, that that was new and specific information and demanded that I act if I could.
That day, the new governor inherited a state near the bottom in schools, in family income, and in desperate need of good-paying jobs. Lamar Alexander went to work. First, he cleaned up corruption. Then Alexander launched a 2-year fight to rebuild Tennessee's schools, with the only education law in the nation that demands excellence by paying good teachers more for teaching well. During 2 terms as governor, Alexander balanced 8 budgets, reduced the number of state employees, achieved a AAA bond rating, and kept Tennessee taxes the 5th lowest in the nation. To attract good-paying jobs, Lamar Alexander helped Tennessee win a competition with 38 other states to get the new Saturn auto plant, and went to Japan 9 times, using a map of the U.S. taken at night to show Japanese businessmen Tennessee's strategic position as a good location for new plants. The result, more Japanese investment in Tennessee than any other state, including a huge Nissan plant that today employs 6,000 people.
We believe that Tennessee employees will make Nissan trucks better than Nissan trucks are made anywhere in the world. Made in Tennessee means quality.
Tennessee didn't produce a single car on the day Lamar Alexander was elected governor. Today, Tennessee is the 3rd largest auto-producing state in America, a place where family incomes have grown more than any other state. Lamar Alexander's inspiration was a former Republican governor who became a great president.
When it comes to encouraging growth, expanding opportunities, and charting a course for excellence in education, Lamar Alexander and the people of Tennessee are giving a lesson in leadership to all America.
As U.S. Secretary of Education, Lamar Alexander took the fight for school choice to Washington. He fought the Democratic Congress for a GI Bill for poor kids, to give parents vouchers to choose schools. And he said race-based scholarships were discrimination in themselves and were wrong. Lamar Alexander. He's been a governor, Secretary of Education, university president, and the co-founder of a startup business that now employs more than 1,200 people. As president, Lamar Alexander will help us take back our government. He'll cut the capital gains tax to create a Niagara Falls of new jobs. He'll get the federal government off our backs by sending responsibility for welfare and crime out of Washington, D.C., and back to our states and communities where we know what to do. Lamar Alexander will abolish the U.S. Department of Education and fight for school choice so parents and teachers in local communities can run their neighborhood schools. He'll fight for a balanced budget amendment to make Washington live in the real world. And unlike the Washington candidates, Lamar Alexander supports real term limits and an end to million-dollar congressional pensions. Lamar Alexander, a Republican running for president from the real world.
May I say hello? I'm walking across New Hampshire because New Hampshire is where the real answers are. They're not in Washington, D.C. We know what to do. A strong America, a steady stream of new jobs, freedom from Washington to make our own decisions, and telling the truth about personal responsibility. We can have a strong defense. We can have more jobs. We can have freedom from Washington. But if our families, our neighborhoods, our churches, and our synagogues and our schools are broken, our country's going to be broken. I believe even more after these days of walking that together we can get Washington off our backs and, even more important, get us back into our families, our neighborhoods, our churches and synagogues, and our schools. I'm convinced we know absolutely what to do to recapture our confidence. I think it starts with personal responsibility. In the end, if the children of Concord or Nashville, Tennessee, are running around in the streets at 3 a.m. in the morning, they are our children. If our children aren't learning to read, we can read to them. If our TV is on and it's trash, we can turn it off. We don't have to go to the movies. We are fortunate enough to either be born in or have come to the greatest country in the world at the time of its greatest opportunity. And it is time we stopped trying to act like the country owed us something and trying to find someone else to blame for everything that goes wrong. And it's time that we started taking personal responsibility for our own actions.
Bring us back to what the values truly are. You can do it.
Thank you.
You can do it. You can.
Across America, Lamar Alexander is beginning a grassroots campaign for president. A different kind of campaign. A campaign from outside Washington, about a cause bigger than politics as usual. A campaign about what kind of America we want in the next century. A campaign about restoring the American spirit and helping America aim for the top. You can help. Come on along.
My campaign is all about leading America into the next century. That's what the Republican president we elect next year has to do. I'll do it by helping to restore our lost sense of confidence in our unlimited future. My first responsibility as president will be growth and jobs. I'll get an arrogant Washington government off our backs by sending responsibility for how we run our lives back to us, in our families, and in our states and local communities. And I'll lead a national call for more personal responsibility in our society. We call our campaign family Alexander's Band, and I'd like to invite you to join us in an effort that is much more than just politics. It's about restoring the American spirit from outside Washington with confidence that we know exactly what we need to do to put America back on top. So if you believe, as I do, that the arrogance of Washington is the problem, and the character of our people is the answer, then this campaign is for you. I invite you to come on along.
Lamar Alexander for president. Aim for the top, America.